Today we're making a DIY sofa that's also a desk. So this sofa might not look that DIY friendly, but it can be made with just these basic handheld power tools. But we used MDF templates to get a little bit more precision out of the basic tools. At the end of the video, I'll tell you how I plan on making these templates accessible to everybody.
I have some scrap pieces of Europly from Columbia Forest Products, and I can just take one of these MDF templates, place it on top of the scrap, trace the outline so that I can cut just outside that traced outline with my jigsaw. I'm not trying to be perfect here and just trying to stay about 1/16th to 1/8 of an inch outside the line. These side panels are going to be 2 layers of plywood thick. So that means I can hide these temporary screw holes where I screw the template to the piece on the inside of these panels. Screwing down the template is just a little bit easier for the big pieces than clamps alone. And once the template is secured to the piece, I can just use my palm router with a flush trim bit to trim the plywood flush to the template. Using templates like this is a great way to get CNC accuracy without having a CNC machine. Now, obviously I could just use one big template to cut one piece of plywood into 1/2 of the side panels, but that would result in a lot of material waste, and I already have a lot of scrap in this plywood, so I made the templates in 2 sets that have overlapping joints. This way I can take advantage of scrap pieces and slowly produce this project piece by piece. I added in holes for 1/2-inch dowels to just help with the alignment of the pieces. You don't need to drill these holes, but you just have to be a little more precise in lining up the layers as you glue them together. A Japanese pull saw comes in handy for trimming the dowels nice and flush. I started by gluing together the complex joints and corner pieces. As you can see, there's nice little bits of overlapping between the 2 layers, and once the glue on those corner and joint pieces had fully cured, I can move on to connecting them with the straight pieces in between. I was tempted to do the whole frame at once, but I started with just that loop that goes under the seat of the sofa. These $1 spring clamps worked well to get everything into its initial position, and then I added some kettlebell weights and some F-style clamps to really hold everything nice and firm. Once that first loop had fully cured, I then completed the frame and was ready for some wood putty. Using templates for DIY projects really improves accuracy, but I did have some little 1/16th-inch gaps here and there that I filled in with the putty. I gave everything a light sanding with 150 grit just to remove little bits of glue squeeze out and get the dowels nice and flush. Then I rounded over all the corners with my palm router and a round over bit. I like doing this aesthetically because it makes the frame look even thinner. Sanding inside nooks and crannies like this can be a little bit tricky, but a drum sander on a drill works well. And I got to try out this new mini belt sander from Ryobi. I am so excited about this tool. It has the power of a belt sander, but this little tiny tip that can fit into tight spaces. This kind of Europly is really dense, and this sander had no problem evening out the 2 layers really quickly. I'm gonna need some linear supports underneath the desk and the seat cushion, so I just ripped down some strips and doubled them up with glue. They aren't going to be super visible, but you will see a little bit of them if you're low to the ground, so I rounded them over as well. I'm basically going to make a rectangular frame out of these pieces, so in the short ends, I drilled in some pocket holes. This allows me to use my Kreg corner clamps to hold them in place while I drive in the screws. I really like the Kreg system, it's easy to use, and it lets me conceal fasteners. Now that the frames are done, I used a full sheet of plywood to rip the pieces for the seat, the backrest, and the desk. I used some cups and bowls to trace quarter circles around the corners, cut that with my jigsaw, and then smoothed everything out with my Orbital sander. I just feel that these curved corners will fit better aesthetically with the geometry of the side panels. I did my finish sanding to 220 grit, removed all the dust with clean microfiber rags, and then coated everything with a nice thick coat of Maker brand Simple Finish. This is a plant-based wood finish that really brings out the color of wood, is super easy to apply, and it's a company that I co-own, along with Mike from Modern Builds and Chris Salamoni from Four Eyes Furniture. I screwed in the support frame that goes under the seat and then screwed on the seat panel. I cut the seat panel long so that I'll have built-in side tables, but this is totally optional. The screws on the seat panel and the backrest are going to be hidden by the cushion, so I'm not worried about them. But the desk, however, will be visible. So after screwing in a support that goes under the desk, I added some screws through the bottom of that support and into the desktop. The sofa frame is done, I placed the cushion, but before I get into how I'm going to share the design files and the templates, let's hear a word from our sponsor.
This video is sponsored by Leather Honey. Founded in 1968, Leather Honey is a family-owned and operated company out of Virginia. Their American-made products are the premier, all-natural, non-toxic solution for all your leather care needs. The kit's really easy to use. It comes with a couple of microfiber rags, which are always handy, and it comes both with a bottle of cleaner and conditioner. Unlike other products on the market that just sit on the surface and evaporate quickly, Leather Honey leather conditioner is uniquely formulated to penetrate into the leather to hydrate each individual fiber, which means just one application can last 6 months or longer. Leather Honey's leather cleaner can be used on vinyl, plastic, rubber, faux leather, in addition to real leather, of course. Leather Honey understands the value of quality leather and how important it is to keep it looking new and fresh. With thousands of 5-star reviews, consumers agree, making it the #1 best-selling leather care products on Amazon. I really like this Leather Honey kit. It has everything I need to take care of my leather. I'm using it here on the simple cushions in real leather, and I also tried it on some of my old leather jackets, and it really brought them back to life. Out here in the desert, the sun is really bright and the air is dry. So we've seen cases where we had furniture right near a window and the leather got a little bit cracked and dry. So it's really nice to have a leather care solution that protects our hard work that we put into these furniture projects. See all the ways Leather Honey's cleaner and conditioner can help prolong the life of your leather by clicking the link below. And use my code MODERNSAVE20 to save 20% off a Leather Honey complete leather care kit, which is the kit I just used. All right, back to the project. So this design is based on the earlier zigzag sofa that I did, I don't know how many years ago back in Boston. That was a really basic DIY project that just used 2x lumber and some plywood. This is a lot more refined, and I think it has a lot of high-end potential on the retail market. Now, the key is how to make this accessible. Obviously, you can, if you have a CNC, you can cut out the pieces, and you could even cut out those end pieces that are all curvy in one go. Obviously, that would result in a little more material waste, and you would need bigger pieces, and you got to figure out something to do with those like leftover donut hole scraps. But what we were thinking and why we really like this template idea is, one, we could ship small little pieces, and two, anyone with a jigsaw and a palm router can cut precisely to the pieces. I mean, these ball bearing flush trim bits are pretty incredible what you can do with them. So I'm not sure, and I'll leave this up to see how the people in the comments feel, whether or not it'd be more useful to have a kit of small pieces, but you do need 2 kits because you need the pieces to overlap so that you can glue together 2 layers and have the seams overlap and make a nice strong end frame. So the question is, would it be more useful to have a kit of 2 frames cut with overlapping joints that you can use, or one big frame that's a lot simpler, a little more difficult to ship, and you'd have to figure out clever ways of, if you had multiple scrap pieces that you wanted to seam together. So I'm kind of torn. I would use these bigger frames if I was making kind of like a junkyard version of the sofa. I think it'd be really cool to scrounge up some melamine panels, like random beat up old plywood, and mix and match a whole bunch of different materials together for this kind of ragtag material-wise sofa, but that would have really sleek lines. I think that contrast between the real sort of modern curvy lines and the kind of more rustic mismatched scrap pieces would be really interesting. You could also make the frames thicker, and if I was using things like particle board, OSB, and stuff like that, I might go 3 or 4 layers deep for the end frames, but with this kind of premium, really strong Europly, you can definitely get away with just 2. Now, it may seem a little bit silly to include straight pieces. You certainly could clamp these down, jigsaw around these rectangles, and then flush trim them to that. Or you could just use this to set the width on a table saw if you had one, and then just rip down the pieces and cut them to length, since rectilinear geometry is pretty easy. I kind of am really excited about projects like this. I think they kind of indicate where the future of DIYing could go. If we can make the templates really affordable, we can provide designs that are really easy to follow, and you're literally, just following the lines of more complex geometry. Also, by sort of incorporating in different sizes, we create the ability to reuse scrap. All these things are positive and heading in the right direction, but working them out is going to be a little bit tricky. So I'm going to be talking to Jonathan Katz. I'll put a link to his YouTube channel in the description below, and really trying to figure out how we can make these MDF templates affordable and accessible to everybody. Now, if you do have a CNC machine that uses easel software, I'll publish through that platform. That platform is really easy for me just to share the files directly. Now, I'll try to figure out a way to make the Illustrator files, which is how I designed and drew this design. Right now, I'm using Gumroad to host those kind of things, and it's great, but when I make files available for free, they do charge me for hosting and all those kind of things. So if you want to take the DXF files, I'll probably put like a $2 or $3 charge on them. But if it's too much for you, well then, I don't feel too bad. It's $2 or $3. You can just use the easel software, which is free, and use them there. And easel works with most CNC machines. As for the cushions, these are real leather slim cushions from the Simple Cushion Company. That's a company that me, Mike from Modern Builds, and Chris Salamone started. And it was basically for projects like this. We wanted simple cushions that looked pretty good. The leather ones are a little more expensive than the vegan leather ones. The vegan leather ones are an incredible value. These are a really fair price, but you can't really get the price of real leather down that much. So almost all of our cost is into the leather itself. So check those out. There's a link to it in the description. And if you do want to make this, these cushions fit perfectly. Now this zigzag style sofa, which is less zigzaggy than the original one, I find really interesting. So for a long time in Boston, I lived in a loft. And when you have a loft, sometimes you don't have a wall to put the sofa against. And then you have to get like a whole nother piece of furniture, like a little bookcase or a credenza or something to sort of go and disguise the back of the furniture and make that useful. I really like this desk idea. One, we first started using it the most when we'd have people over to watch a UFC fight or a Super Bowl or something, some sort of big televised event. And what's really nice is that it almost becomes like stadium seating where you can have people kind of layered behind each other. Now, that can get super annoying when somebody's eating chips and dips right in your ear as you're sitting and watching, but we make it work. But for custom woodworkers, I think this type of furniture represents a really cool market opportunity. There's so many options out there for buying furniture online. And if you can make something that has a dramatically different functional capability, like a desk included, it allows you to really extend that price point and hopefully improve your margins because you're really giving two things for one. Also, it creates a little novelty to kind of separate and differentiate yourself. Now, a lot of like multifunctional furniture involves really complex steps of like transforming things and flipping things out and rotating things down, where the gimmick almost undoes the value of the dual functionality. I think ones like this, though, are pretty close to having no compromise on the primary functionality and still just giving you this additional use case. Thanks for watching. Check all the links in the description and let me know in the comments what you think about the MDF templates, the use of the palm router, and the CNC files. All right, bye.